Good to see you.
Go ahead and get started. All right.
Erwin, how are you today?
I'm good. After the meeting, I want to hear how you were asked.
All right. Welcome to the Special Call Rules Confirmations and Public Elections meeting. It is January 24th. We are running just a little bit behind. So I appreciate everyone being here. We have a couple of members who are on their way, who are stuck in traffic. We do have a quorum here with myself, Councilmember Cash, Councilmember Evans, and Councilmember Toombs. First item on our agenda are the demographic breakdowns of the boards and commissions. Colleagues, this was emailed to you by Rosie. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it. There are a couple of things that I do want to take note of. Obviously, our representation is not at the levels it should be when it comes to several categories. Race, gender, we've made some strides. Disability, our numbers are low there. There is also sexual orientation, and then the newest one is a breakdown of income as well. So you could see a little bit of a disparity there when you have so many people making $200,000 or more, and they make up the biggest percentage of board and commission members. While before, a lot of this would lie on the administration side because they were appointing a huge number of board and commission members. We do have a bigger responsibility now that a number of appointees are coming from the council body. There has also been the comment that administration vets the people that they put up, and they have a specific person dedicated to that work, while as we as a council do not, right? And so what is our process for vetting the people that we are putting up, and what is our process to ensuring that we are putting up a more diverse group of people? And diversity could look in different ways by what you all have before you. I think that we need to reiterate to our colleagues and to ourselves that responsibility, and there are specific things that we could also do. I know that we had some issues early on. I do think that a future matter we need to take up is the questionnaire. I suggest that we add social media handles on there. My thought process with that is that we'll obviously be able to take a look at the nominees and some of their stances on things, but I'm sure some people would weed themselves out if they knew that we would be looking at that, and hopefully they would withdraw before they even came here so we wouldn't have to deal with it. So those are some initial thoughts. I don't know if committee members or Councilmember Vo, if you have any remarks or questions regarding some of the data breakdown. Councilmember Toombs.
For the council districts, how is it we don't know where some of these folks are?
Yes, so some of them, as Councilmember Cash has pointed out, look to be council members themselves on boards and commissions, though that could be fixed. Some we suspect are probably because this questionnaire is new, and they were probably on there before.
Okay.
So it is something that we need to work through.
And I think some of them are, if I may, like people that are like I see Director Monica Odom on there as unknown, and she's on there as the director of parks, and there are others like that. I see a judge on there, and so some of it's that, but we still should be able to get them.
Credit for that.
You want credit? Yeah, well, my credit is 2, and I'm one of them, so. Councilmember Vo?
Yes, can you confirm are the districts for this updated map, because for example, I checked mine, and I know one that was pointed, like, one that said that this individual was in my district is not, and I know for certain he's actually in 16. So I just wanna check, are these based on districts from before redistricting? And if not, we need to really check through that, cause that would change things.
That's a good point.
I would bet that it's from the date that they were appointed, the date that they lived on, the date that they were appointed. So I bet that they're updated now, but if you were appointed 3 years ago,
And you fill out the
you were in
questionnaire.
district, yeah.
Okay, well, then we need to clean up that data because it's still incorrect, right?
Correct.
Like, people who, at that time, they were appointed is still different. So I think we need to make sure that's cleaned up.
That's a great point, yes. We will mention that to the clerk's office. We will be sending out communication to all the boards and commissions to make sure that all of their data is filled out, and potentially, hopefully, we would have current members go ahead and fill out some of those questionnaire mistakes or blanks. I'm also going to be sending out communication to board chairs as far as what their priorities are. I think it's important that we know what that is, and if they have any specific comments when it comes to people that are coming up before us. Anybody else? Councilmember Coopin, do you want a packet?
I
So
would
you
love a
could.
packet, thank you so much.
Yeah, there's one at the end over there. Councilmember Toombs.
I wonder, what's the solution for in terms of the income breakdown?
Yes.
Because I would say the higher your income, the greater chance you have to be able to afford the supports that you need to do community work outside of your regular job. So I'm kind of mulling over how to get folks more involved who are on the lower end of the income spectrum, because they're most likely have a job that is not flexible.
Yeah, it also might be the time of some of these meetings, right? Some of them happen during the day instead of much later when people tend to be out of work. And I know that can mean overtime for some Metro employees, et cetera, but I think that's a great suggestion, right? Something that we need to take a look at. Because I agree, when you have it in your face like this, where the majority do come from a higher income bracket. Any other comments? Yes.
I was gonna, you all kinda covered it, but I was gonna say, like, I think we need to send it out again and say, hey, we really need some information updated from y'all. And I like your idea of, like, we might need to do it in a couple of different ways, like, send it out to everybody. Say to the chairs, hey, can you help
Yeah.
fill in the stuff for your, you know, give them like their, just their, each, if we can, or either give them this whole thing with the listing of all the people, or give them their specific commission, so it's a little easier for them to digest and say, hey, can you help us fill out this stuff? I think that's really important, because I think some of this is pretty easy and like, but some of it is just because we weren't asking these questions more than a couple of years ago, you know?
Yeah.
And you can even look on income, you can, even though we have so many not reported, you can look at the council district breakdown, and, you know, it's generally, like, you can,
West Nashville.
yeah. Yes. You can just look at the ones that are above 5%, and they're, you can't say, you know, I have a mix of people in my district, but generally they're higher up in the income scale. And you can just look at the districts that they're coming from, so. And I was also gonna say one thing, and this, you know, I'll say it again when we talk about the application form, but like it just says income level, and I think I could see, my first question is, do you want my family income level or my personal income level? So we could at some point like make that clear.
Okay,
Because some of these that are over 200 might be the family income, not just the individuals.
that's a fair point. Councilmember Vaughn.
Yeah, if possible, if it's not too complicated, I think it's also important, maybe I know where they live, but maybe if possible, what district they work in, because, for example, I see some people, and it's like, oh, they live in this district, but I know they work in another district. I don't know if that will help, because it kind of shows representation or like where they're helping out. It just hit me whenever I was looking at like some of the names, and I'm like, oh, okay, they serve here, but, you know, they're what are in the, which way they're representing, it might just help as well.
Got it. Okay.
I know that's low, I mean, I would say it's low priority, but it would, I think, provide more insight too.
That's something you wanna see, okay.
Oh, sure, thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you for that. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so I guess next steps is to, communicate to current boards and board chairs, the need for updated information, have, your board members, I'll talk to Austin about this as to the best method for doing this, getting their updated information with their new districts, all of that. I do think we need to change the question, and it's actually very, very opportune moment that the LGBTQ caucus just got out. Because there was a comment made about one of the questions on our questionnaire. Where is it? Demographics. Do you wish to identify, nope, that's disability. That question's also weird. Here we go. Do you wish to?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Do you wish to openly identify as LGBTQ? Someone asked me if that was a trick question, right? Because it's the way it's worded. It's, do you want to identify? Sure, but that doesn't mean I'm a member of the community. So I would ask probably for the help of the caucus if you guys could help us come up with better language. That would make sense.
Would you like us to do that now?
If you want.
And I know last term when we were talking about that, adding that box, we wanted to come across as voluntary in case someone didn't want to identify. And I think that's why we came up with that language. So it was, so people knew it wasn't mandatory that you had to do that. If that makes sense?
What are your thoughts on saying, do you identify as LGBTQ optional?
Yeah.
Or the responses are yes, no, or I do not wish to.
Yeah, prefer not to
I
answer.
prefer not to answer.
So it's
There
already
you go.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would change the question as, do you identify as LGBTQ?
Yes, no,
And then
prefer not
yes,
to
no,
answer.
or prefer not to answer.
Depends on the day.
Who's asking?
Can you all take note of that so we can have that
Absolutely.
change? Okay.
Yeah, this was on our list too, so.
Okay.
Look at, we reached consensus quickly as a caucus.
Yeah. Vice Mayor,
I
would
guess
you like a
having smaller
packet?
body is very productive.
Ms. Bo got one for me, thank you so much, I've got it.
All right. Okay, so that's one that needs to be changed. We can consider Councilmember Vo's suggestion that we add where they work, what district they work, although I think it would be an extra step. And what if they work outside the county and all that? And
If they change jobs.
what if they change?
Very true. These are good, yes.
So there's that. Can we also add social media handles on there? So they could tell us. Yes,
So
Councilmember.
that's a great question. So what if they move? Does that, do
Is
they have to
there-
report it?
If they move out of county, then I think that they
They
do,
would need to
because
resign.
they would likely become ineligible.
Yeah.
So I guess we could have a reminder come from board chairs that if anyone's moving, to make sure to report that in, just so we could have accurate data as far as what district they live in now.
What if once a year we ask people to re-identify with some of the things on the questionnaire?
That's a fair point, right? It's like an audit of where we're at the moment. It'll help us keep the data clean. I think that's a great suggestion.
I agree.
Vice Mayor?
Interesting suggestion also, like I have found in some of the board and commission appointments that have fallen to me, sometimes you have folks who have an address that is out of county, even though they reside within, because you know, the driveway, like I had somebody today, like Ashland City, I was like, well, you can't serve, but the house is actually in Davidson County. And then I had a really great candidate, but, who was a metro school teacher, but he resides in Clarksville. And so, it was interesting to me in speaking with the director of the department or other board and commission members, I don't think they were necessarily aware of the residency requirement. And so I do want us to be mindful that, you know, make this questionnaire as good as it can be, but then I also think we need to kind of have a standard template of things that we share with department directors who have associated boards and commissions. And that list is deep, but, you know, if a member of your commission moves or whatever, so not to thwart the annual audit or whatever, but I do think we need kind of a comprehensive list for, directors with associated boards and commissions for some of these sort of reminder type things. Sorry, that's slightly aside.
No,
but,
it's a great point, and I think it'll go into a little bit after the presentation from the Human Relations Commission of what we could do better as far as accountability for some of the boards and commissions.
Yeah.
You're good? Councilmember Cash.
I like Councilmember Benedict's suggestion about like every year, but I think to me it's something, it should be something different. Like what we should do soon is that we were just talking about a few minutes ago is to send out the form again and say, hey, can you fill this out again to make sure? But if we're gonna do it every year, maybe we are able to send what they filled out and say, is this accurate or is there something that needs to be changed? Does that make sense?
I was actually, what I was gonna say a second ago is maybe it's a website that says you must respond by this date, and here's the information we need you to verify. Because it doesn't have to be the whole application, right? We just need you to verify the demographics, this, and this.
Let me talk to Kyle then, to see, the most efficient way to do this. But
I think that there might be merit in it being a piece of paper given out at a commission, because I think sometimes, like with plumbers, for instance, with some of the different boards that we have, people may not have as easy access. You see, some of the applications we get are still written in long form. So I just would wanna make sure that it's available in paper form, and so maybe the answer is we give out the piece of paper at the commission
Yeah.
for the person to fill out right then, or the option of do it online.
yeah,
Just an option.
I like that. I think that's great. Yes, that's a great suggestion. All right, anybody else? All right, again, if you all could help me figure out the best way for us to reiterate to our colleagues that we have a higher responsibility now that so many of these appointments are coming from us, to think of diversity and people of all walks of life to serve on these boards, and for some of the council members in districts that don't have a lot of representation, to opportunities for them to also participate. Yes.
One more question that we think maybe needs clarification is the, do you wish to identify the existence but not the nature of a disability? I think we'd like to change that to something along the lines of, and please correct me if I'm not using the right terminology, do you wish to identify as a person with a disability? The do you wish is the thing that I think trips people up. It's like, you know, it's same with the LGBTQ. The question is, do you wish, yes or no? And it's like, I think people might not know how to answer. So yes, no, prefer not to answer.
I think that's good.
Okay.
Well, and going back to the LGBTQ, because I saw it on the chart, maybe instead of yes, no, we put gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender.
It's a pop-up.
There
Okay.
is a, yeah, if you click, I think, yes, I guess you get a drop down. And we can look and see if the drop down is, you know,
Comprehensive.
yes, because I think that it's, we might want to add like an other, I think that it might not have like
Yeah,
other.
I would want there to be options like non-binary or other, so I think
Okay.
I would just say a member of the LGBTQ plus community.
And not have the drop down?
That's my, that's my recommendation. I would say it's up to the caucus, but I just wanna make sure that people who might identify as queer or non-binary, that they don't need to select
want
a
it-
box that they don't belong in. So they don't want to.
Keep it simple, just do you wish to identify as
Yeah, we've got
LGBTQ, yes
the,
or no?
LGBTQ
Yeah,
plus.
Because it's broken down by bisexual, gay, queer, and not reported.
I think just LGBTQ plus community.
okay.
I would make sure that the plus is there, not just LGBT.
So just change the question, do you wish to identify as a member of the LGBTQ plus community?
Yes. Get rid of the drop down.
Councilmember Cash.
Hey, going back to something you were talking about a minute ago, and I got somebody that's watching, I think, sent me a suggestion that I was kind of already thinking about. When you, or maybe it's a question, and you've already thought about it, when you were saying that you want to get like goals from chairs of boards and commissions, is part of that like their diversity needs, like what they feel like, is it their?
So I thought about it in different ways, right? So like some arguments are no one on the Arts Commission could help out during the budget process, is something that someone called me about, right? Other boards might say it would be nice if I had someone with this qualification. So there are specific boards that say, like the hospital authority, you must have a nurse, you must have XYZ, right? Seeing if there's priorities when it comes to that, but also seeing where the board is headed or what are the issues that are coming up before them more recently.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's not just about what they hope to accomplish, but also what their needs are in terms of filling vacancies.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cheers, Linda.
Yes.
What would happen though then in just sort of the ebb and flow? So I'm just thinking about directors that I have called for the appointments that I have to make. And so that is a question I'm asking, like what skill set do you need on this board at this juncture? Do you need an accountant, an attorney, like, and so, but that, I mean, there is sort of standardly, we would like to have this cohort, but sometimes that can be limiting. And then sometimes people come on and they have two professional things. And I mean, that's just ever evolving, I guess, I wonder, and so I just,
I think it's good to have a snapshot of where we're at the moment,
Okay.
right? I think that we will need to break down the demographics by board and commission even further. What has happened in the past is a lot of the diversity is put on certain boards, right? The arts commission, all the diversity ends up there, and then you look at the airport authority and no diversity, and I think it's good to figure out where we're at the moment. Not saying that we are going to go out of our way and say, yes, this is important and we're gonna fixate on this and limit ourselves to this. But I think it would be good to see what the needs are at the moment. All right, anyone else? All right. Well, thank you guys for all that feedback, and hopefully we'll have some better data. This is what we have now, which is a good snapshot at the moment. But now, for our second item is the Human Relations Commission. And we do have Pastor Davey Tucker here, and Ashley, who are going to be presenting to us regarding equity practices on Metro boards and commissions. So I'll let you guys.
All right, we'll probably go back and forth here,
That's good.
and it was real informative just listening. I would say just the exercise here that we just witnessed is refreshing. That's not always been the case. I think through the history of Nashville, it has always historically been more of a patronage situation, and you had the big 5 or 6 boards and blah, blah, blah. So it's refreshing just to hear that you all are talking about this. But we're looking for ways that we can help you all reach that, because we tend to show up when there's an issue or something, like with the arts or with the benefits board issue, those things, to where are there some systems or some practices or that would help inform you all as you all seek to fill all these boards. Are there questions that are general, or are there questions that are specific to a particular board or commission? So we're listening right here, because we appreciate you even asking us. So, Ashley, you want to chime in here, or I can keep going?
I can give a few sort of, like Davey said, I think, so we receive, for folks, maybe some of the newer council members, like Human Relations Commission, we receive complaints from community members, from employees about discrimination, negative experiences more broadly, and so that is when we have been tapped into some of the conflicts going on boards or commissions, it's through that formal way, right? And so we thought that we could highlight a couple of them just to sort of show examples, and these are probably not new examples. The Metro Arts Commission, of course, right now, as part of our fact-finding that we're doing right now with the complaints that have been submitted to us, we've reviewed all of the previous nomination processes, and you know, there hasn't been in the past always a lot of sort of thorough opportunity to ask nominees sort of where they are on issues, to see how it aligns with the priorities of the agencies, right? And so y'all have already brought up one of the things that we wanted to bring up is that where, because of sort of like the structure and the process that it does exist, like it's unreasonable for this committee and for the council members to know what all those priorities are at any given time for our 80, 90 boards and commissions, right? And so, with the Arts Commission, I mean, we just saw the nomination interviews where people stated, I have no qualifications for this position aside from my interest in the arts. And that was the only statement that led to some members getting approved for those seats. And in interviews that we've done, people have said, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, right? So it's like about preparation to serve as well. Just in as much of, is it a good fit for the seats that we're looking at? What we could say about the benefit board, there's this ongoing years-long effort to make our healthcare plans for employees fully inclusive of healthcare needs that transgender employees have, and it's gone to the benefit board. It's failed 2 times now. And when one of the appointees came up who had voted negatively in the past, there was this discussion about the mayor's office supports this, HR supports this, finance supports this, but what do we do? And board members in the past have voted negatively for some of these policies that all employees should have, right? And so, a community member took it upon themselves to file an ethics complaint because people come to us looking for recourse, right, when questions of accountability. And so those are some of the sort of boards and commissions in the past 12 months that we've specifically worked on. We know that there are other examples as well that are sort of within these.
Yeah, ours with the previous administration, with differences around policy, whatever, sought to just strip the board. And if it had not been for the council saying, no, we're not going to do it like that, the administration wanted to seat 10 people. And in the 10 people that they were going to seat, they were going to knock out the entire current leadership. And even after talking with them, hey, I can do this, but the council provided a backdrop that allowed us to talk and work out a way to compromise that. So issues do come up, and I don't know if there's a way of, as Ashley's saying, being more proactive. I heard you last night ask, are you committed to issues around equity? Which is not a typical question, but would maybe be a question applicable to all boards and commissions. Because, that is a lens in the way in which we see the world. So, okay.
Yeah, I would just say, and that's going to look different for whatever the business is. And, I myself, I don't know what all the dozens of boards that we have, like their exact duties, right, authorities. But I think one thing that we've talked a lot about is like the importance of what y'all have already talked about it, or began to talk about it, of like what are the priorities and the needs of the boards and commissions, right? And how do you do this vetting process that is like tailored to what those are, right? Because we also have heard that when boards and commission staff have given recommendations of what they feel like they need, like that kind of goes into a black hole and nobody really knows, like, was that considered, why or why not, when it hasn't been taken up. And so I don't know if that's, like you said, a survey that's done once a year, but like how can, whether it's the chair or department heads that are associated with some of them, like give more intentional feedback, right? Well, thank you guys for all of that information. I do think it's important to figure out what the priorities of the boards and commissions are. I do think, and even from last night, believe that this committee has a responsibility and a checks and balance responsibility that we haven't used thus far, and not just this current committee, but committees in the past through previous administration. This committee has been something that people have to check off their box, and most people, the majority of people, have just gone through with unanimous consent. So early on, I asked, I think it was you, Hannah, who I asked, or maybe it was you, Director Darby, what does it mean for someone to be considered qualified, right? That's our question that we take up here. What makes someone qualified? And it was stated that the definition of what a qualified person would be is ultimately up to the committee, right? And so we have the ability to say this person is qualified on paper and through this lens, but when we're considering boards and commissions and the priorities of those boards and commissions, we do not believe that this person would be the best fit for this board. And I think, I'll speak for myself only, I think an example of that was last night with one of the people that was nominated, right? I voted for them here in this committee, but I did not vote for them on the floor. And I think going forward, I think this committee needs to be more reflective of where we actually stand and not just giving a pass to people as they come through. And I let someone from the administration know that yesterday, that would not be my intent. And as we start a new term with a body with so many new council members, I believe it would be prudent of us to set that precedent now, so everyone gets used to it. I don't know if you all have any thoughts or any questions for the Human Relations Commissions.
I have one question, if I'm recognized, Chair.
You're recognized.
Okay, thank you. I guess kind of going back to that, related to like what we have on this questionnaire, one thing I learned last night, I don't necessarily know that I feel confident, or I guess I just reminded myself, I don't always feel confident between what people put in writing, what the nominees are saying about the people that they're supporting, and what's real. And do we have a city mechanism for any kind of background check or anything like that related to people that we're bringing into these roles? I guess I'm looking at legal and I'm looking at everybody over here.
Did you see me lean over like this?
I'm assuming the answer is no, but.
No, I mean, there's the questionnaire that people fill out, and one of the things that, you guys can be looking for when doing this and looking at going to that qualifications question is the, the board that someone's being appointed to, knowing what they do, knowing what that board, entails. It's if it's the plumbers board, then is this person a plumber? Do they have experience in that trade? That kind of thing. If it's a different kind of board, you know, you might want to look at the code section that creates the board or the charter section that creates the board to see what the mission is and what kind of work they're expected to do.
Some of those boards don't have a lot of information on their site. So I've gone through each one as people come up, and it doesn't give that much information. I'm able to find more information when I go into previous meeting agendas to see what they were working on, but then some don't even have that much information when it comes to that.
Well, so in MuniCode, when you go and look at the creation of the board, usually under there, there's some sort of purpose or mission for the board. It's not always phrased the same way, but, and it will tell you what that board was created to do, you know, what kind of, you know, if they're doing some sort of enforcement, what kind of enforcement they have, that sort of thing. Charter, same way, some of the boards and commissions are created by charter. So, you know, that's something that you can look at as well. I don't know if they always, I don't, you know, their website is not, I don't know who creates the website, what kind of information, who's responsible for that information, whether it's ITS or the board members or not the board members, but the executive director or the department that is associated with it, or clerk's office. I don't know who puts all that up there, but that's something that maybe they should look at adding also, just kind of the mission, stated mission in the charter/code.
The other thing that I might just add is there's also usually a contact on there. I think that they might all have a contact.
They
So if you
do.
have questions, you might just email them to that contact if you need like clarification or something.
Okay. I'm also just more hesitant as far as background checks, because there are certain boards where people who are undocumented can serve on them. And I've tried to make that less scary, right? So I don't
That's fair.
I don't ask anymore, are you a registered voter in Davidson County? I just ask, do you live in Davidson County? Right, so I would be more hesitant about doing something like that.
And that's fair. It feels very vibey to me right now, like, do I like this person?
Yeah.
Do I like Sandra, who is supporting this person? Do I like the mayor? Do the qualifications seem to be aligned? It doesn't feel as, I don't know,
Guided?
yeah.
My turn.
I mean, and I was gonna share as well, so for a few of the appointments that I've done in sort of, you know, reaching out to the director of the department, I've had to sort of ask the awkward question as, does your board have kind of hire, fire, and, you know, performance review of you? Because then I have to sort of draw a line there, like I can't, I'm calling the director for some insight as to the skill sets needed on the board and what they understand, but I can't say, hey, director, send me a list of people you'd like to be on this board, if those people evaluate that director. But not all boards have that construct, and I will say, in some of the conversations I've had, I don't think the director sometimes even knows that, if that is the role of that board. We have had a whole lot of kind of consternation internal to a wide variety of boards and commissions of kind of, you know, what the role is of the commission relative to their director or the department. And so I do concur with Margaret, like I just think there needs to be that sort of across the board, and I somewhere in a hopper with J.O.N. Cooper at some juncture, I had sort of some draft legislation around some kind of continuity expectations across all the boards and commissions, and so that's kind of, I'll put a pin in that somewhat. But coming back to what Ms. Evans is speaking to, I do feel like this sort of awkward burden wherein I am doing my best to sort of reach out to a diverse cohort of folks who I think might know this nominee, to make sure that these folks are, you know, I mean, again, just sort of like vibes, like, do they work well with others? Are they comporting themselves ethically? Like, or would they be, right? And that's a little bit awkward. And to Ms. Evans' point, like, people will make certain assertions about folks, like, this person isn't good for this board because, and that's an awkward space to be in too. And we don't, on the council side of the house, you know, the mayor's administration has a staff person specifically charged with, you know, I mean, that is their professional responsibility. So to your point around background checks or vetting or whatever, that person represents, the mayor through that appointment, and so it's sort of incumbent on them to make sure that person is good. And I'm sort of over here with the ones I gotta do, and I'm just, you know, I mean, not just vibes, but, right, like, I don't, right, it takes an immense amount of time, I'm finding out, right, like, all those ones that have fallen to me, and so, you know, I'm trying to reach out to the director, ask for the skill set that's needed, speak to a diverse group of folks in the community to give me feedback on the people that I think will be nominees, but it's kind of like, how do you, like, I mean, that's the way I'm choosing to do it, but I can't. I mean, I've had a few directors say, like, you're the first person who's ever called me to ask what's needed on my board. That's surprising to me, right? Like, so, I'm trying to kind of follow up on your suggestion, Ms. Evans, like, yeah, I mean, I have literally thought that, like, I'm gonna put my name on this appointment, and like, I don't, you know,
Well,
like, is this person have, you know, have they assaulted someone? Have they done, like, you know, that kind of thing?
Yes,
well, it's like last night, like, some of the information revealed, my first thought was, does the mayor's office know this? And we didn't have an avenue to go down, so then I just had to vote my conscience. And, but to your point, when like, kind of, you're asking, or making the comment about, like, the hire fire side of it, like, I wouldn't know that unless I look ahead and go, oh, it's arts commission, or whatever the boards and commissions are, to kind of purposely look that up or find that out. I don't know how I would know that ahead of, you know, it's not on a questionnaire.
Yeah, there's certain boards, right? So Arts Commission, Libraries, Parks, Human Relations Commission, I think those are all of them. The ones where the board hires directors, executive directors.
Well, I think, is planning that way?
Yeah,
And,
planning.
Sports authority is that way?
Yeah, so,
Metro Action is separate.
yeah. So I think maybe having those notes on the agenda, or just having a sheet of paper already with that information that goes to all of the committee members, so we have it ahead of going into a meeting.
Who's in that? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
sorry.
Councilmember Coop and
Oh, well, just gonna echo what Councilman Evans had said about kind of that vibey feeling. Like, I feel like as a new council person, I've tried to find my footing and shared that kind of same consternation of, you know, I want to do my diligence, but don't feel like I've got a lot of guidance on how, so I'm kind of making up my own rules. And so I've kind of jotted down some things that I'll think of, like, what's the nexus to the committee in question, and like, but I do agree with that kind of, it feels more vibey, or do I trust this person versus a real clear set of questions that I'm thinking through. So I would welcome and love to see some more kind of guideline or standardization of how we're evaluating them.
Councilmember Vo.
Yes, and I think, you know, I know on the application it says, like, describe any potential conflict of interest your appointment may present. But as you can see, you know, like, when we were dealing with certain boards and commissions, they came up later. And I think sometimes people are unclear, and they may not think that they have a conflict of interest. So whether, like, that's part of the education and, you know, laying it out there. Because, for example, yesterday, someone was like, I serve on 6 other boards. Oh, well, I would like to know what those 6 other boards are. I mean, like, or different things, or, you know, so that it helps, like, because I think it would help prevent, or we have a better understanding of that individual and what they're doing.
It's in their resume, and the question, the resume that gets attached to the questionnaires that go out to all the council members. But I have, to that point though, I have noticed that some of the resumes look very different from others. So some will put a 1-pager with just a narrative about themselves, and then others put real resume behind it that would have that breakdown. But I think I agree, there needs to be, I think, more guidance as far as what we would like to see there. Councilmember Toombs.
Would it, so my concern would be making sure the process is objective as possible, and not based off whether or not someone is liked. It's, you know, do they have the skill set? Can they work on this board? I think that something that would be helpful is perhaps the nominator, whether that's the mayor's office or a particular council member, to give some intro and explaining why this person is a nominee. And in that explanation, you know, this is their skill set, this is the void or vacancy that they're filling on the board. So if it's, you know, I mean, it's easy if it's a nurse is required and the person is a nurse. But, you know, this person has financial knowledge and that's why that's important to this board.
Yeah, I did that for the IDB board, right? So I let them speak on why they wanted to serve, and then I allowed time for the person that nominated them. So would this committee prefer to see that on the front end?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my preference.
Councilmember Evans.
May I, as far as piggybacking on what Councilmember Toombs said, one thing that we have a strong advantage in this committee is we do get to have that conversation with appointees, and the rest of the council members don't have that advantage because they're right before, you know, we're right before we start the meeting. And so I know we've had some of the meetings, like if it's a significant board or commission or whatever, you know, where they were in the chambers. And so I don't know if there's, and I hate to be like, oh, let's add to our agenda for the council meeting or something, but if there's opportunity for any of that on the floor, which I don't know that there would be, but for some of the significant boards and commissions, that might be helpful for everybody to hear.
Like a questioning or them speaking at the podium, giving some
Yeah,
information?
like speaking at the podium or something, I don't know.
But then how would you establish the hierarchy of which are the ones that are more significant? I mean,
Whoever has
like-
higher fire, maybe,
Yeah,
just an idea.
I apologize, I'm sorry.
No.
I shouldn't have asked a question out of turn, Chair. I apologize.
I'll go to Coopin and then Bradford.
I agree with what Councilman Evans is saying. I'm not sure what that structure looks like, but I mean, I find myself, you know, for like Arts Commission, you know, I really wanted to be here to hear some of the answers because I had some concerns and questions, but due to another conflict, wasn't able to be here and then had to vote on the floor without that information. So I don't know if there's a way to either do it on the floor or, again, not trying to break the whole system, but, you know, provide a, you know, it comes before the Rules Committee the meeting before it's voted on, or, you know, there may be some solution that would allow people to access that information ahead of time.
Councilmember Bradford.
Kind of following, you were on the train of thought I was having. You know, I know the current setup is more of a convenience so that the people who are being voted on only have to come one night. But my thought was, if we know that there's going to be a committee where you're going to, like last night we have 14 or 15 people. Well, you know that's going to be a long committee meeting. Why not move that one to the Monday before, after, you know, budget and finance, whatever. That way there's no time limit and there's no rush to get through it before the council meeting. And also that gives people the opportunity, if you weren't able to come to Monday night, as far as council members, we can then, you know, go on YouTube or go on online, watch the committee before the Tuesday night council meeting. But I also like his idea of, you know, why not have them come the council meeting like 2 weeks before, have their interview with the committee, and then at the council meeting 2 weeks later is when we vote on it. That way it gives the body time to get their questions answered, to watch the recordings. Again, that does mean people who are up for these boards might have to come to 2 meetings, but I'm kind of the opinion, if they're wanting to serve, that's kind of part of the responsibility.
Vice Mayor.
I mean, would they have to be present when they're voted on their appointment? I mean, they could just come for the interview at a separate time. They don't necessarily have to be there.
That's true.
I mean, once they are appointed or what, like, we could just send some sort of unified congratulatory, appreciative communication, right? They don't physically.
It would save some time during the meetings, because now you're not spending 5 minutes everybody getting up, shaking hands.
You're uninvited now.
But I do like the idea of doing it 2 weeks before. I think that will be, provide opportunity for folks to make a more informed decision.
And questions will come up, and it'll give time for council members to reach out again as well. Councilmember Bo.
Is there a reason why, I mean, it happens the way it does now, or there is no, it was just convenience, is that the reason?
I think a part of it is convenience for, having the member here and then being able to go straight to the meeting where they're going to be voted on. And the congratulations, they come in, typically they come in to get a photo with the mayor, that sort of thing. It's not just vote, it's a
Yeah,
little
and
pomp and circumstance.
I don't know, may I just, I don't know if that sort of fell away, so a variety of administrations have put, I mean, it used to be in my first term of service, it was like, they were arriving, they had the picture with the mayor, and then they had staff up here, and they were, and so, yeah, that was kind of a thing, and then that just has a legacy, there's a lot of metro, like, well, it's just always been done that way, right? So I do appreciate and find it interesting that, like, yeah, the 2 weeks ahead buffer, and then in some regard, like, this sounds a little bit awkward, but I guess, when people do have maybe a genuine concern, and I'm always trying to kind of think about, not wanting just to make it be like perfunctory, here's this big thing, but also, people who have volunteered for uncompensated community service, and then there's a certain awkwardness, understandably, of people not wanting to embarrass that person or not vote for that person, or, so if you're affording them the context of committee to answer questions and speak to their abilities, and then, thank you so much, and, we'll let you know, and then we vote it the next time, they don't have to be here, we do genuinely appreciate and send them some sort of communication, but, because this has solely been with the mayor previously with the picture, but I don't know if that even happens anymore or whatever, yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and so that's what I was gonna follow up, I know, depending on what is decided, but maybe we can talk with the mayor, and it's like once a month, right? All the appointments, they can come, and there's a certain time they can go get their picture for all the appointments, but then we can then vote, and so it's more organized, and it's not every time.
And if I may add, in my first term, a supreme awkwardness in, you would get a communication that it was your constituent, and then it was like, were you invited or not invited to the mayor's office? But I was chairing a committee, so I couldn't go down there, and then I didn't want the nominee to think that, like, I didn't care enough to stop by and say hi to them, but I was so busy, often I wouldn't touch base with my constituent who was here, and that night of stuff did create some awkwardness, whereas, to your point, if organized on a monthly basis or whatever, people might actually appreciate that as a acknowledgement, a time with the mayor that is not in a stressful, like, I had to come down here and do the interview, and then I went in there, and are they gonna vote for me, right? It just feels very pressed, and not necessarily ideal, so that's interesting.
I think those are great suggestions. I think I can follow up with the administration, Kathy Buggs, propose the, administration, I hear you.
Speaking of the
Yeah. Speak of the devil.
Ears were burning.
Mr. Sexton, thank you for joining us. We were just discussing the need to figure out a process to make sure that council members are able to hear what happened in Rules Committee. And so it's tough when we have our meeting right before council starts and they're not able to hear from the candidates. So the proposal is that we have them come to the Rules Committee 2 weeks before to come answer questions, and then for the next meeting, they would be up on our agenda. Is there any specific feelings you all might have regarding that? I know that this would probably move your timeline up by 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've been trying to work with Vice Mayor to, within any, first dance, to get some alignment, just for the sake of making sure that council members feel informed by the administration when necessary. As far as timelines, I'll have to look more into that. I think it's a good thing that council members have access to information as far as being able to make committee meetings. I can speak on behalf of the mayor. We had a conversation this morning about figuring out ways to make sure council members feel informed. So, you know, I can share this information with them, but I see no reservation
Okay.
on my side about that.
Councilmember Coopin, then Bradford, then Pastor Davey Tucker, and then Councilmember Vo. We're running close on time, y'all. All right.
I'll be quick. I think that this is a good line of thinking. I think, and as I'm thinking about it too, I think about the general public as well, right? That constituents also would have an opportunity if they couldn't be available at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m., you know, and then have a chance to reach out to their council member. If something is uncovered or discussed during the rules committee, then it also gives them time to react and reach out to their council person and say, oh, I heard that thing, I think they may be great, or I think they wouldn't, or I wasn't a fan of this person, now I am, or vice versa. And then my other thought, or I guess question, and just doesn't be answered, but a question to think about is, do they come speak at meeting 1 and then rules votes on them meeting 2, or do they speak and rules votes meeting, so it would be they'd speak meeting 1 and they come back, rules vote,
Yeah.
and then bring it to the body?
Yeah. So anyone coming before us for that meeting, they will be before us in 2 meetings at the council
Okay.
meeting. That was confusing, but I hope you guys understood that. All right, Councilmember Bradford.
This question is primarily for the benefit of the administration since they're now in here, but I had this issue last term, and looking through the list of appointments, like very big, early this term, we appointed someone to a board for my district, but I had no idea that they were my constituents. And the last administration, I tried to get them, like, if you're appointing somebody from my district, I would like to know, because me personally, I want to be able to reach out to that person, have my own one-on-one interview with that person to see if if I'm okay with this person being appointed. And so, for the benefit of the administration going forward, I think all my colleagues would like this. Let us know if there's someone that you're appointing to a board from our districts. Reach out to us. Say, here is who we are thinking about putting, or who we are submitting. So that way, if we want to go and talk to them on our own, we have the opportunity.
Great, I think that's a great suggestion. Pastor Tucker.
You had said earlier, as we're jotting notes, and we'll go back and talk a little bit, but about this continuity across the boards and commissions. Could not that be possibly extended to the continuity that you and the administration would agree on, which would be a part of everybody that comes? What are those things that you all agree on? And then just listening about the public part, possibility of public noticing board appointments, and that I'm operating, listening. Again, as I said, I'm really refreshed about all this conversation around boards and commitments, boards and commissions, and are these ways in which that can bring about what it is that you're trying to do, that as you work it out with the administration, are there 3, 4, 5 things that you all agree on that could become part and parcel of this whole process?
Yep. I think that's a great suggestion. I think the notice that people have is when it's put on the agenda. Are you talking about more of a notice?
Yeah, like, here's these 10 people who are gonna be, 2 of them to the airport authority or whatever, because as Ashley said earlier, we only get called when people think something is crazy or whatever, because there's often no other. And I bring up the person who worked for Bristol Motor Speedway, who was a candidate to be on the fair board.
Last term, yes.
Yeah. And so that had to be leaked. You know, that didn't just come up through the process of screening. That got leaked, so it got mileage. So you got tipped off on it. But can there be some ways, and I think maybe with, even with the resume, yeah, some people put 1 page, and some people put a whole CV in there. And then you have some folks that don't have a resume prepared. So possibility of a form,
A template.
a template
Yeah.
that would gather this information that you feel that you need, whether that's job history, applicability to the board, and then a quick glance header for the boards and commissions of trying to remember, you just flip over and there's this thing that Ms. Darby was talking about, that, this board does this, this, and the other, just as a way of not having to go hunt it down, not having to go to
Yeah.
the Muni Code. So,
I think that would be great to include in the questionnaire packet, just like for whichever boards are being discussed, right, for the appointments. Just a one-pager, this is what the board does, as we look into each individual resume. Would that be possible?
and my last comment, boards wrestle with meeting quorum sometimes. And I think it's often because the individuals maybe didn't understand the time requirement. That, and for some boards, well, what I've seen, boards are only important when their thing is the main thing. They operate in obscurity most of the time until they got that thing that everybody's looking at. And then when they can't make quorum and people don't come, and then the difficulty in moving people off a board who don't attend regularly.
Yeah.
There is a process that's in there, after so many times, and the chair encourages the person and da-da-da-da. But oftentimes that slows up the work of the
Yeah.
commissions.
And that could be on my part as well, as people come before the committee, asking them if they are willing to meet the time requirement to participate in these boards and commissions. But I do think that we need to speak to the board chairs and to the department directors about the timing of the board, because I do agree with Councilmember Toombs that if we're going to consider some of these other brackets, such as, income, if it's during the day, there are very few people that could make those, right? There are some, even when I was at my previous job, I couldn't get out to go to one of my committees because I have a regular job like everyone else. So I think those are great suggestions, yes. Councilmember Vo.
Thank you so much, Chair. I have a couple. One, I think, is a parliamentary inquiry. So, yesterday at the meeting, there was one vote that was like some no's, some abstentions, and there was no discussion. Is that not allowed for board appointments or not? Can someone clarify for me?
There was a period of discussion. The vice mayor called for any discussion.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe people just missed that.
I think
Or
we just wanted to get on with it.
thank you. Okay,
But
so
we can utilize that more. Ideally, a lot of that would happen in Rules Committee.
Right.
So other council members are allowed to come in here and I could recognize them to ask questions. But again, not everyone can make it because they're stuck in other meetings or they have presentations, et cetera.
Okay.
I
it
would-
is allowed. It's just
It is allowed. I would like it to be done here, but I agree in those cases where it's a tough topic that we should make it clear that everyone's allowed to have discussion, Vice Mayor.
Right, and if I may share from my first term of service, sometimes a nominee would be put forward, and it was really obvious maybe as to conflicts or concern within the body, and typically what we would do with respect to that community member is go to the administration and be like, hey, I think this is gonna be somewhat embarrassing for your nominee. Then it was kind of incumbent on them to sort of suss out, well, okay, is this just 4 or 5 people, or is this 8, 9, 10? Like, what is this? Because to the point of having discussion in committee, I think we should maybe think about, I respect and appreciate that, pulling somebody off a unified slate to register an abstention or a no vote, and that's appropriate, but also, are we gonna in the full chamber kind of debate somebody's merits and problems and assertions and, is that the debate we wanna have in chamber, or should we have that discussion in committee, because I think what we're struggling with a little bit, I know with some of the contentiousness on various boards and commissions, maybe, the time commitments that we're talking about, if we put citizens in a space where they feel like if they were to say, yes, I would like to serve in this regard, that we would be in the main chamber debating their merits and work history and all that kind of stuff, like, we have a lot of boards and commissions, and it had been difficult to keep kind of engaged, participatory folks. I think we would put ourselves in even a more difficult position as a city, right? If that were known to be like, I just see that as being problematic. It's not that I didn't call for discussion if it's an individual vote, but we're kind of evolving a little bit in how we approach this, and, in my first term of service, it was just like, everybody just felt like it was really pretty perfunctory, and it was just like, boom, 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 here we go. When there were real concerns and it came up, it was just sort of, it was a little bit, honestly, more back of house, just to the administration, to be like, I don't think this person is well suited, I think this is not gonna go down well, and with respect to this individual in your administration, we would advise whatever. But I mean, that only happened maybe my first term, maybe 2 times that I recall.
Yeah, and that's because everyone would just go through it, and I honestly don't want that anymore. And I think that in these handful of meetings that we've had this term, I don't think that this council is going to do that anymore, which I think is good, in my opinion. I will say that when we did have discussion about specific appointees last term, which were a handful of times, it didn't go very well, to the point where one of the meetings had to be paused because we were out in the hallway having it out. So it does, a lot of people get their feelings hurt. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. And then my second question is, is it possible to get like letters of recommendation, that's not, because some are appointments where they could have other people speak for them, because just like other council members were saying, you may not know this person, you read these certain things, but if it's another person in the community, or like when we apply for different things, a letter of recommendation that provides another perspective is just maybe an option. It's not required, but if someone does, it allows them another voice, and it's a community voice. Just a thought on that, or what that
People
looks like.
usually email us recommending them. I guess we could, depending on what Austin says, if there could be an attachment where people could upload any recommendation letters, that could be helpful. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, in the past, I believe on some situations, the various caucuses have submitted like a letter.
Yes.
I know the minority caucus has done it a few times. I think the LGBT caucus maybe did it one time. Yeah. Basically saying, we as a caucus recommend this.
And we usually put those on the desk the day of.
Well, that's another option.
Yes. So, but I think that's a great point.
And just, if I could jump in real quick and make sure that we're clear that when you make that kind of recommendation from a caucus, that your caucus has made that determination at a public meeting that's been properly noticed, and not just the day of when you didn't have a public meeting. Just wanna make sure we're clear on open meetings.
All right. Well, this has been productive, to say the least. So, I will meet with the administration, talk about the timeline change and if that's a possibility. If anyone has any other recommendation as far as the questionnaire, if you guys could send that in to Director Darby, that would be great. I'll talk to Austin about some of the changes and seeing what we could do. And I will also talk to him about getting updated data from the boards and commissions. And I will get communication out to the board chairs and department heads about priorities for their boards and commissions. Did I miss anything? Anything else? Any other questions for Pastor Davy Tucker and Ashley. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here and presenting to us. This meeting is adjourned.